This food is spoiled.
Then leave. This lounge isn't for people like you.
It's my lounge. Shut it down, now.
Adrian Cole reached the entrance to Meridian Crown Lounge just after 8 on a crowded Monday morning at Charlotte Douglas International Airport. He wore a gray t-shirt beneath a plain canvas jacket, dark jeans, and leather shoes softened by years of use. A faded backpack hung from one shoulder. No assistant, no expensive watch, no tilt suit announcing that he belonged anywhere. He joined the priority line, waited his turn, then held out his phone to the young woman behind the podium. Maya Brooks scanned the boarding pass. The screen turned green. First class access confirmed. "Good morning, Mr. Cole. Welcome to Meridian Crown." She had barely finished when another voice cut across the desk. "One moment." Vanessa Whitaker stepped from beside the marble counter, composed in a navy blazer with the lounge crest pinned above her heart. Her eyes moved first to Adrian's shoes, then his jeans, then the worn seams of his backpack. Only after that did she look at his face. "I'll need a photo ID." Adrian handed it over. Vanessa studied the photograph longer than necessary, and the card used to purchase the ticket. "The system confirmed my access. We've had issues lately," Vanessa said. "People using information that doesn't belong to them." The words were polished, almost gentle, but something underneath them pressed against the air. Adrian glanced at Maya's screen. The green confirmation remained visible. "What else do you need?" "The confirmation email. Your physical membership card. Possibly the original payment method." Maya looked toward Vanessa. "His boarding pass and profile match," she said softly. Vanessa did not turn. "I'll decide when verification is complete." The line had grown past 20 people. A few travelers leaned around Adrian, checking the time as though his body, not Vanessa's demands, had caused the delay. At the next podium, a white man in a golf jacket and jeans lifted his phone. The agent glanced at the screen and waved him through without asking for identification. A white woman behind him gave only her last name. Her husband joked about coffee, and both were welcomed inside. Adrian watched them pass, then looked back at Vanessa. "Do these steps apply to every guest?" A faint tension touched the corners of her mouth. "Our staff uses professional judgment to protect member privacy and the premium experience." "Professional judgment," Adrian repeated, as if placing the phrase somewhere safe for later. Vanessa returned his license. "You understand why we have to be careful." Adrian felt the old familiarity of the moment. Not shock, not even anger. Something quieter and more tired. He had stood in rooms like this before, where proof became insufficient the moment it belonged to a black man dressed without ceremony. He could have ended the exchange in one sentence. One call would have changed Vanessa's posture and filled the doorway with apologies. But that would only teach her how to recognize one powerful man. It would tell him nothing about how she treated everyone else. Vanessa picked up her tablet. Her thumb moved across the screen. An orange label appeared beside his name, Manual Review Service Monitoring. Maya saw it too. Her eyes flickered, then dropped. Fear, brief but unmistakable. Adrian stored that reaction beside Vanessa's name, the time, and the phrase professional judgment. "All right," Vanessa said, as though granting a favor instead of honoring a valid ticket. "You may enter." She turned to an attendant. "Take him to the annex." The attendant hesitated. "The main room still has seating." Vanessa's gaze hardened. "The annex." Adrian lifted the backpack strap and stepped through the doorway. Above him, brushed metal letters spelled Meridian Crown. He had chosen that name more than 20 years earlier because he wanted travelers to feel received, not measured. That morning, the letters looked less like a welcome than a question. Who did this place believe was worthy of walking beneath them? What Vanessa did not know was that the man she had just marked for monitoring had founded Meridian Crown Hospitality and still held final authority over every lounge carrying those letters. He had not come to Charlotte to win an argument at a front desk. He had come to learn what happened to people who could not call the chairman when the rules changed in front of them. 3 days earlier, Adrian Cole had been sitting alone in his Washington office with 2 documents laid side by side beneath the white light of his desk lamp. The first was Charlotte's quarterly performance report, 96% guest satisfaction, No significant food safety incidents. The lowest complaint volume in the region. At the bottom of the final page, Vanessa Whitaker had been nominated for Meridian Crown's annual Leadership Award. Everything looked clean, controlled, almost flawless. Too flawless. Adrian rested one hand against his jaw and opened the second document. It was a copy of a complaint the Charlotte team had already closed. A black first-class passenger wrote that employees had asked him 3 separate times whether the ticket actually belonged to him. He had shown his identification, his boarding pass, and the credit card used for the purchase. None of that appeared in the internal summary. The official note said only, "Guest appeared unusually sensitive to routine verification." Adrian read the sentence twice. The words were careful. That made them worse. They erased the repeated questioning and replaced it with a flaw in the guest's personality. He opened another complaint. A black physician said she had been directed to a rear seating area near a service corridor, even though open tables remained near the windows. When she asked why, an employee marked her as confrontational. The physician had attached a short phone video. Adrian pressed play. The woman's voice was quiet. She did not interrupt anyone. She asked whether her ticket included access to the main room and waited while the manager answered around the question. Nothing in the video matched the word confrontational. Adrian leaned back and looked from the video to the written report. One version described behavior. The other protected a decision already made. Near 7 that evening, after most of the executive floor had emptied, an anonymous email appeared in his inbox. The sender claimed to be a former Charlotte stockroom employee. There was no greeting and no request for money. Only a warning. Do not announce the inspection. They will replace the food, delete the records, and move the inventory. Sit near service door 3 after breakfast. An image was attached. It showed a sealed case of premium smoked salmon being pushed into a service hallway. The timestamp matched a morning when Charlotte's inventory system claimed every case had been opened and served inside the lounge. Adrian enlarged the photograph. He studied the shipping label, the employee's sleeve, the edge of the service cart, even the reflection in the metal door. The image was troubling, but it was not proof. A transfer could have been authorized. A timestamp could have been misunderstood. Adrian had built Meridian Crown by refusing to confuse suspicion with fact. He needed to see what the reports could not show. He closed the files and crossed to a cabinet near the window. His formal travel cases sat on the upper shelf. Below them was an old gray canvas backpack, faded along the seams and repaired twice near the zipper. Adrian had carried it at 23 while working overnight shifts at Baltimore's airport. Back then, he had saved every extra dollar and studied hotel operations during meal breaks. One morning, after being promoted to assistant manager, he entered a partner hotel wearing his management badge and carrying that same bag. The front desk supervisor pointed toward the loading entrance and told him deliveries belonged in the back. She apologized only after another manager called him by name. Adrian had gone home angry, but his father had listened without feeding the anger. "Don't let people make you dress expensive just to earn decent treatment," he had said. Adrian never forgot it. Now he lifted the backpack from the cabinet and brushed dust from the strap. He did not turn the memory into a speech or summon his executives for a dramatic meeting. He placed a printed copy of the itinerary inside the backpack and booked a same-day first-class trip through Charlotte under his own name. Only Compliance Director Daniel Price knew the full purpose of the trip. Daniel, Dr. Hannah Kim, and 2 compliance specialists waited in a nearby concourse, ready to respond without alerting the Charlotte staff. If the lounge operated as promised, no one needed to recognize the founder. If it did not, he wanted to see the failure before a title frightened it into hiding. Back in the present, Adrian followed the attendant beyond the bright main room. The polished tables gave way to darker carpet. The windows disappeared behind a low partition. Each step carried him farther from the buffet and closer to the mechanical sounds of the service corridor. Then he saw a gray metal door marked 3. The chair Vanessa had selected for him sat directly across from it. Adrian lowered his backpack beside the seat and looked at the door. The anonymous sender had told him exactly where to sit. Vanessa, without knowing it, had placed him in the best possible position to learn why. The attendant called it the annex, a careful name for a neglected section behind the low partition. Its carpet was worn, 2 outlets were marked as broken, and the chairs faced away from the runway. Service carts passed beside the tables, and the employee restroom opened directly across the aisle. This was not a quieter version of the main lounge. It was a place where guests were assigned rather than welcomed. Adrian set his backpack beside him and began to watch. A black airport technician sat 3 chairs away, still wearing his reflective work uniform. His boarding pass rested on the table, first-class markings visible near the top. A black nurse, in a Navy hospital jacket, had been seated near the partition despite several empty tables by the windows. Across from her, a Latino businessman balanced a document case on his knees because the nearest storage shelf was broken. An older black veteran waited quietly with a connection folder tucked beneath one arm. Every one of them had passed the entrance system. Every one of them had been directed to the same side of the room. A few minutes later, 3 white passengers entered, wearing sweatshirts, athletic pants, and running shoes. No one examined their clothing. No one suggested the annex. An attendant smiled and invited them to choose any open table near the buffet. Adrian watched one of them drop a gym bag on a second chair while an employee brought coffee without being asked. Clothing was not the rule. The meaning assigned to the person wearing it was the rule. Maya approached, carrying a glass of water on a small tray. She placed it in front of Adrian and kept her voice low. "I'm sorry about what happened at the entrance." Adrian looked toward Vanessa, who stood near the main podium reviewing something on her tablet. "What does the orange label mean?" Maya's hand paused beside the tray. "You saw that? I was standing in front of the screen." She glanced over her shoulder. "Management uses it for guests they want staff to monitor." "Monitor how?" Maya pressed her lips together. For a moment, Adrian thought she would retreat behind policy. Then she spoke. "We're told not to offer the special menu unless they ask. We track how long they stay. If they question a rule, we note it. If they approach other guests, we notify a manager." Adrian let the words settle. What qualifies someone for the label? There isn't a written standard. Then what do they tell you? Maya looked down at the glass. Not matching the profile, needing extra observation, not looking like a usual guest. Her discomfort deepened before the last phrase. "Sometimes they say the appearance doesn't match the booking level." Adrian's face remained still, but something tightened behind his eyes. "Have you reported that?" Maya inhaled. The answer had reached her lips when Vanessa appeared beside the table. "Is there a problem?" "Mr. Cole asked about the service code," Maya said. Vanessa's expression did not change, but the temperature in her voice did. Guests do not need explanations of internal procedures. She turned to Adrian. "Those systems exist to protect everyone's comfort." "Whose comfort?" he asked. Vanessa held his gaze for half a second, then lowered her tablet. In that movement, the screen angled toward him. Adrian saw his name, the orange marker, and a note beneath it. "Presentation mismatch. Confirm behavior before extended service." Vanessa locked the screen too late. Adrian did not accuse her. He did not reach for his phone. Anger would have narrowed the moment to one offensive phrase. What he had just seen was larger. A private assumption had been entered into a company system, given a professional label, and turned into instructions that other employees were expected to follow. Bias no longer needed to announce itself. It had become data. Vanessa sent Maya back to the podium. A different attendant arrived with a thin paper menu and placed it beside Adrian's water. In the main room, another employee was describing the full buffet and made-to-order breakfast to the 3 guests in sweatshirts. Adrian opened the paper menu. It listed coffee, packaged fruit, and 1 sandwich. "Do all first-class guests have the same food access?" he asked. The attendant looked toward Vanessa before answering. "It depends on the service level shown in the system." Adrian glanced at the boarding pass on his phone. "First class, full access." There was no lower service level attached to his ticket, only the one they had quietly created after seeing him. Adrian waited 12 minutes before anyone brought him food. The tray arrived without apology. A chicken sandwich sat beneath loose paper, warm only at the center. The lettuce had softened into dark folds. Cloudy liquid collected beneath the fruit cup. The coffee had formed a thin skin, and the yogurt container had no date label. 30 feet away, an attendant replenished smoked salmon on a silver platter. Fresh pastries filled warm baskets, berries shone beneath white lights. The contrast was too deliberate to blame on a rushed morning. Adrian had written Meridian Crown's first food safety manual when the company operated only 3 lounges. He had checked refrigerator temperatures himself and taught employees that premium service meant nothing if a guest became ill. He did not need to taste the sandwich to know it had been handled poorly. He turned the yogurt over. Dried adhesive clung to the plastic where a label had been peeled away. Adrian photographed the tray, then entered the time, table number, and condition of each item into his phone. One careless tray could be a mistake. A removed date label suggested intent. The metal door marked 3 opened across from him. Grant Holloway pushed a service card into the corridor with practiced confidence. Adrian recognized him from the Charlotte directory. 3 sealed cases rested on the cart. Premium salmon, imported cheese, and bakery products carrying brands listed on Meridian Crown's invoices. Grant passed each barcode beneath a wall scanner. A green message appeared, transferred to service floor. The cart should have turned toward the buffet. Instead, Grant pushed it through the service door. Through the opening, Adrian saw a man waiting in a jacket from a local event company. The man checked the labels and rolled the cases onto another cart. No envelope changed hands. The exchange looked ordinary. Seconds later, Grant's phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen, deleted the notification, and returned inside. Minutes later, another employee carried a cardboard case into the secondary stockroom. The box showed a discount distributor Adrian had never approved. The products inside matched the size of items appearing on annex trays, but not the brands in company records. The pattern sharpened. Meridian Crown paid for premium inventory, part of which left through door 3, while cheaper replacements entered the secondary stockroom. The main buffet retained enough premium food to pass inspection, while guests marked for monitoring absorbed the lower-quality substitutes. Grant was using the lounge's biased classification system to conceal the theft, counting on complaints from the annex to be dismissed. The black nurse nearby lifted her fruit cup and frowned. She called an attendant over and said quietly, "This smells fermented." The attendant did not smell it, inspect the seal, or call the kitchen. She opened her tablet and typed. Adrian could see the screen. Guest dissatisfied with presentation. No safety issue observed. No thermometer appeared. No label was checked. A possible safety warning had been renamed as personal taste before anyone investigated it. Adrian looked from the false note to the sealed door. The lounge was deciding whose health concerns counted as facts. Adrian rose with his empty water glass and walked toward the self-service station near the corridor. He moved without urgency, appearing to search for ice while keeping the computer desk within earshot. Grant Holloway stood beside a newly hired attendant, one finger resting on the complaint screen. "Never use unsafe unless someone has been examined," Grant said. "Don't write discrimination. Don't write spoiled food. And don't say uneven verification. Those terms trigger compliance." The attendant frowned. "What should I select?" Grant tapped the menu. Guest dissatisfied with presentation. Guest misunderstood benefits. Emotional response. Uncooperative after explanation. Keep it operational, not accusatory. Even when that isn't what they said? Grant's expression cooled. "Your job is to record the service outcome, not repeat every word a guest uses." Adrian filled his glass and glanced at the monitor as he passed. The nurse's complaint was open. Her original statement, "Fruit smelled fermented," remained visible for 1 second. Grant clicked edit. 2 minutes later, the record read, "Guest dissatisfied with menu selection. No product concern verified." The warning had not been investigated. It had been translated into harmless language until nothing dangerous remained. From the main room came an angry male voice. A white traveler stood beside the coffee station, demanding to know why his drink had taken 10 minutes. He spoke loudly enough for several tables to turn. An attendant apologized, offered fresh coffee, and added complimentary lounge points to his profile. No manager appeared. No behavior report opened. His frustration became a service recovery opportunity. The nurse's quiet concern had become a reason to monitor her. 2 guests, 2 records, 2 versions of reality. Maya returned with a pitcher and stopped beside Adrian's table. As she refilled his glass, she slid a folded piece of paper beneath it. Her hand trembled once, then steadied. Adrian waited until she moved away before opening it. 4 internal case numbers were written in careful print. One concerned missing date labels. Another documented extra verification demands placed on black guests. The third involved grant-changing inventory records after deliveries. The fourth accused Vanessa of closing plaints before regional compliance could review them. Maya came back as though checking the napkin holder. "Those are yours?" Adrian asked quietly. She nodded. "The first one was 9 months ago. What happened? My schedule changed." Her voice stayed even, but her fingers tightened around the pitcher handle. "I went from 5 shifts a week to 3. When I asked why, Vanessa wrote that I was having trouble adapting to the service direction." Adrian studied her face. She was frightened but not uncertain. "Why did you stay?" Maya looked toward the annex, at the nurse, the technician, and the others, seated where staff believed fewer people would notice them. "Because if everyone who knows leaves, there won't be anyone here to tell guests they're not imagining it." The answer carried no heroism, only fatigue and a stubborn sense of duty. Adrian folded the paper and slipped it into his pocket. Before he could ask more, Vanessa appeared. Maya returned to the podium. Her eyes dropped briefly toward Adrian's glass. "Employees are prohibited from sharing internal material with guests." "She brought water," Adrian said. Vanessa's gaze stayed on Maya until she walked away. Adrian turned toward the man at the coffee station, who was still complaining while an employee prepared a replacement drink. "Are black guests more likely to be described as confrontational here?" Vanessa's face tightened. "We don't see race. We evaluate behavior." Adrian pointed toward the main room. "Where is his behavior report?" Vanessa followed his hand. The white traveler struck the counter lightly with his palm and demanded to speak with someone in charge. The attendant continued apologizing. Vanessa looked back at Adrian. "You seem determined to find problem in everything. I'm asking whether the same behavior receives the same name." She gave no answer. The lounge door opened before the silence could deepen. Leonard and Gloria Bennett entered together. Leonard, a tall black man with silver hair, leaned carefully on a cane. Gloria stayed close enough to steady him without making the gesture obvious. Their passes scanned green. Vanessa looked first at Leonard's cane, then at Gloria's plain travel coat, then across their faces. She did not welcome them to the main room. "Seat them in the annex," she told an attendant. "It will be more appropriate." Adrian looked beyond her. Several window tables remained empty. Leonard and Gloria Bennett were led to a table 2 rows from Adrian. The aisle narrowed near the partition, forcing Leonard to turn sideways and lift his cane over the wheel of a service cart. His face tightened for a moment, not enough to become a complaint, only enough for Gloria to notice. She placed one hand lightly beneath his elbow and guided him through. The annex Vanessa had called more appropriate was harder for him to enter, harder to cross, and too cramped for him to extend his injured leg. Gloria looked toward the main lounge where several window tables remained empty. "Could we sit over there?" she asked. "My husband needs a little more room." The attendant glanced toward Vanessa before answering. "Those tables are reserved for priority guests." Gloria looked at the first-class boarding passes still open on her phone. A small question crossed her face, followed by the weary decision not to spend another morning proving what the screen had already confirmed. "All right," she said. She helped Leonard lower himself into the chair and placed his cane within reach. A tray arrived soon afterward. Adrian recognized it immediately. The same lukewarm chicken sandwich, the same softened greens, the same cloudy fruit cup and cold coffee. Leonard reached into his jacket for a small medication case. "I'm supposed to eat before I take these," he told Gloria. He unfolded the sandwich wrapper and lifted the bread. Adrian was standing before he had time to debate the choice. He crossed the aisle without rushing and stopped far enough away not to crowd them. "Sir, please don't eat that until they check the temperature. My meal came from the same batch, and it showed signs of improper storage. Leonard's hand paused. Gloria leaned toward the tray. The moment she caught the sour edge beneath the fruit's sweetness, her expression changed. She pushed the entire tray away. "That isn't right." Adrian raised a hand toward the nearest attendant. "Please bring a food thermometer and check the date labels before any more of these meals are served." Vanessa appeared almost at once. She did not examine the sandwich. She did not ask Gloria what she had smelled. Her eyes settled on Adrian as if the danger in the room stood upright in a gray jacket. "Mr. Cole, return to your seat. You need to stop approaching other guests." "He didn't bother us," Gloria said. "He stopped my husband from eating something that smells spoiled." Vanessa barely looked at her. "We have received several concerns about Mr. Cole's behavior since he entered the lounge." Adrian turned fully toward her. His voice stayed low. "Concerns from whom?" "I'm not required to identify other guests." "Then identify the behavior." Vanessa's jaw tightened. "You have approached people without invitation. You have created tension, challenged staff, and refused to accept direction." "Which of those actions created a safety risk?" Adrian asked. She shifted her tablet against her chest. "Your pattern of conduct is becoming disruptive." Again, Vanessa had supplied a label without identifying a specific act. Leonard looked from Vanessa to the untouched tray. "The food still hasn't been checked," he said. Maya approached from the front desk, pale but steady. "We need to stop serving that batch until someone verifies the temperature." Vanessa turned on her. "Are you taking a guest's side against your manager?" Maya swallowed. Fear moved across her face, then settled into something firmer. "I'm taking the side of what's safe." The annex went quiet. Vanessa stared at her for one hard second, then lifted her radio. "Call airport security. Mr. Cole is interfering with staff and encouraging insubordination." Maya's eyes widened, but she did not withdraw what she had said. Adrian felt the last piece fall into place. He had allowed Vanessa to question him, isolate him, reduce his service, and mark his profile because he needed to see how far the system reached. He could not allow Leonard to become part of the evidence. Observation ended where another person's health began. 2 airport security officers entered moments later, moving with measured steps. Vanessa pointed toward Adrian before either officer could ask a question. "That is the man causing the disturbance." Adrian stood in the center of the annex with his hands open at his sides. The unsafe tray remained in front of him. Behind him sat the people who had watched every word and every decision. In his jacket pocket rested the number of the one person who could freeze this lounge's operations before another plate left the kitchen. One of the security officers stepped forward, his posture alert but not aggressive. "Mom, tell us exactly what happened." Vanessa drew herself taller. This guest refused staff direction, approached other members without permission, and created a tense environment. Her version arrived smooth and complete, polished by the same language used in the complaint system. She did not mention Adrian's valid first-class ticket. She did not mention the orange code she had added. She did not mention the uninspected food tray, Gloria's statement, or Maya's request to stop serving the batch. Adrian looked at the officer. "Am I accused of threatening anyone?" The officer glanced at Vanessa. "No one has said that. Has anyone claimed I touched them?" "No. Did anyone hear me raise my voice?" Silence answered before the officer did. "Not that I'm aware of." Adrian gestured toward Leonard's tray. "Then what policy prevents a guest from warning another guest about food showing signs of unsafe storage?" Vanessa cut in. "This is not a courtroom." "No," Adrian said. "It is a lounge serving food to the public. That requires clearer answers, not fewer." Gloria leaned forward. "He never threatened us. He stopped my husband from eating that sandwich." Leonard nodded. "I'm grateful he did." Maya stood near the podium, both hands clasped tightly in front of her. "Mr. Cole's access was valid from the beginning," she said. "The monitoring code was added manually after the scan." Vanessa turned sharply. "Maya, you are violating internal procedure." The second officer looked toward the tray. "Has anyone checked the temperature?" Vanessa's mouth opened, but no answer came. Adrian reached into his jacket and took out his phone. He called Daniel Price. Daniel answered on the first ring. "Adrian?" Adrian kept his eyes on the service corridor. "Lock all guest record editing privileges at Charlotte. Preserve 120 days of camera footage. Suspend transactions connected to this location's food vendors. Vanessa stared at him. Adrian continued. No inventory leaves service door 3. Stop food service immediately. Arrange access at the partner lounge and refund every guest's fee for today. Grant had been standing near the kitchen entrance. At the word service door 3, he moved quickly toward the corridor. One security officer stepped into his path without touching him. Sir, that area is being preserved for review. Please remain outside it. Grant stopped. His face tightened, then emptied. Vanessa looked from Grant to Adrian. Who do you think you are, giving orders in my facility? Adrian ended the call without answering her. During the next 15 minutes, Adrian made clear that no one was to be detained, searched, or deprived of personal belongings without lawful cause. His instructions focused on preserving access. The stockroom, management computers, and service files were to remain untouched until the compliance team arrived. He asked Maya to help move guests calmly to the partner lounge. He asked Gloria whether Leonard felt dizzy or unwell and offered to bring airport medical staff if needed. Leonard said he was steady, only hungry. Adrian found a sealed package from an approved vending kiosk and checked the label before handing it to him. Vanessa watched the room reorganize around Adrian's instructions. The man she had marked for monitoring now sounded less like an angry customer than the person responsible for every risk inside the building. Daniel Price arrived with Dr. Hannah Kim and 2 compliance specialists carrying secured evidence cases. Daniel took in the room, the officers, the untouched tray, Grant near the service corridor, Vanessa beside the podium, and Adrian standing with Leonard and Gloria. Then he spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. Mr. Cole, editing access has been locked as requested. All Charlotte camera files are under preservation. Senior leadership has been notified and is waiting for your report. The lounge fell silent. Vanessa looked at Daniel, then at Adrian, then at the Meridian Crown emblem mounted behind her. Grant's breath caught. Maya's eyes widened, though no triumph appeared in them. She looked at Adrian as if trying to reconcile the man whose ticket had been doubted with the founder whose name appeared on the company's earliest documents. Vanessa's voice came out smaller. I didn't know who you were. Adrian met her eyes. My ticket told you everything you needed to know to do your job correctly, Doctor. Hannah opened her case, inserted a calibrated thermometer into Leonard's sandwich, and waited. The number settled outside the safe range. No one spoke. Adrian's identity had changed the room, but it had not changed the most important fact. Leonard had nearly eaten unsafe food because the staff had decided he belonged in the part of the lounge where lower standards could be hidden. Daniel Price moved first. He instructed the front desk to stop admitting new guests and arranged immediate access to a partner lounge in the next concourse. Meridian Crown would cover sealed meals, transportation assistance, and every access fee charged that morning. No one was asked to wait for an apology before receiving help. Adrian stayed beside Leonard while an airport medical technician checked his blood pressure, found no immediate signs of distress, and advised him to follow the instructions for his prescribed medication after eating. Leonard showed no sign of illness, but Gloria's hand remained on his shoulder until the technician finished. Across the room, Dr. Hannah Kim worked through the annex trays and secondary stockroom with quiet efficiency. The chicken sandwiches had been held outside the approved temperature range. Several yogurt cups and packaged salads had missing date labels. Open containers carried no record showing when their seals had been broken. In the cooler, the product brands did not match the purchasing invoices Daniel pulled from the system. Daniel secured the service door log, downloaded the complaint edit history, and restricted access to the manager's tablet. Vanessa watched the evidence leave her control one file at a time. This is being made to look worse than it was, she said. Everything we did was intended to protect the premium experience. Adrian turned toward her. He did not raise his voice. Why did the white guests who entered after me receive access without additional identification? Vanessa folded her arms. Each interaction is different. Why were black guests with valid access repeatedly placed in the annex while open tables remained in the main room? We make seating decisions based on operational judgment. Why was a food safety complaint rewritten as dissatisfaction with presentation? Vanessa's eyes moved toward Daniel, searching for a safer person to answer. Staff have to interpret what guests mean. People describe things emotionally. Adrian unlocked the copy of his profile Daniel had preserved and held the tablet where she could see it. Presentation mismatch. Confirm behavior before extended service. That is not behavior, he said. That is how you saw me before I had done anything. Vanessa's composure shifted. Not much. A small tightening around her mouth, a breath drawn too quickly. This was a misunderstanding. Adrian set the tablet down. My ticket was clear. The food is clear. The video will be clear. Grant Holloway stepped forward before the silence turned toward him. The cases leaving through door 3 were excess inventory, he said. We transferred them to a partner event so they wouldn't be wasted. Daniel searched the transaction record. The system says those cases were moved to the lounge service floor. Grant glanced at the screen. Then someone entered the wrong code. Where is the transfer order? Daniel asked. There should be one. There isn't. It may not have uploaded. Grant's confidence thinned. I'd have to check. Adrian looked at Daniel. Record his first explanation and this one separately. Compare both with the camera footage and vendor payments. Grant started to respond, then thought better of it. Vanessa looked around the room, suddenly aware that no one was waiting for her permission to speak. Are you firing us here? She asked. Adrian studied her for a moment. She seemed prepared for humiliation, perhaps because public punishment was the language of authority she understood best. You and Mr. Holloway are suspended from company systems and operational duties pending investigation, he said. You will receive written allegations, access to the evidence used in the review, and the opportunity to respond with representation. Vanessa blinked. After what you think I did? Fair process is not reserved for people I agree with. Near the podium, Maya stood very still. She looked less relieved than afraid. Mr. Cole, she said, I gave you internal case numbers. Vanessa was right about that part. Adrian turned to Daniel. Preserve Ms. Brooks' schedule, pay, and personnel file. No changes without compliance approval. Maya opened her mouth, perhaps expecting a promise of promotion or protection beyond what had been earned. Adrian gave her neither. You will be interviewed like everyone else, he said. What you reported will be reviewed on the evidence. She nodded, and some of the fear left her shoulders. Before leaving for the partner lounge, Gloria paused beside the annex partition. Her eyes moved over the worn carpet, the narrow aisle, and the tables where certain guests had been quietly separated. You didn't need to own this place for what happened to be wrong, she told Adrian. He met her gaze. I know. That was why the investigation could not end with one manager, one stolen shipment, or one morning of embarrassment. The first phase of the investigation lasted 5 days. By the end of the second day, Daniel Price knew the failure extended beyond one unsafe tray and one dishonest stockroom supervisor. He expanded the review to cover the preserved 120 days of camera footage and 14 months of inventory records, complaint histories, employee schedules, and vendor payments. The service door recordings told the story in patient, repetitive detail. Grant Holloway moved premium salmon, imported cheese, fresh produce, and bakery cases through door 3 during quiet periods when few guests or employees were nearby. The shipments went to an event company operated by a longtime acquaintance. That company later sold the food at private receptions, while Meridian Crown's records showed the same products had been served inside the Charlotte Lounge. Investigators traced roughly $260,000 in missing inventory and inflated invoices. Grant had avoided large transfers. He used small electronic payments, gift cards, false consulting bills, and vendor refunds scattered across different accounts. No single payment looked dramatic. Together, they formed a pattern too precise to dismiss as error. The complaint records revealed something deeper. More than 160 guest reports had been deleted, closed under the wrong category, or rewritten until the original concern disappeared. A complaint about repeated identification checks became sensitivity to routine verification. A report of sour food became dissatisfaction with presentation. A calm question about seating became confrontational behavior. Daniel's team compared the records with camera footage. Many guests labeled difficult had never raised their voices. Several had remained seated while managers stood over them. Black travelers with the same ticket class and membership status as white travelers were flagged for additional verification at a far higher rate. They were also directed to the annex more often and received restricted menus more frequently. White guests who complained loudly were usually offered points, drinks, or apologies without any behavior note being added to their profiles. The data showed that the language was not neutral. It changed depending on who was speaking. The annex had become part of the scheme. Cheaper replacement food appeared there more often because managers believed complaints from those tables could be minimized or rewritten. Vanessa Whitaker had not received money from Grant's operation, but the investigation found that she approved the guest classification practices, permitted complaint edits, ignored food warnings, reduced Maya's schedule after her reports, and submitted false performance summaries to the regional office. Her polished reports had not hidden chaos. They had protected it. After the evidence review and formal response period, Grant's employment was terminated. Meridian Crown referred the financial records to the appropriate authorities for further examination. Vanessa was also dismissed for discriminatory treatment, concealment of complaints, inaccurate reporting, retaliation, and failure to respond to food safety risks. A regional manager who had received one of Maya's earlier reports but never opened an investigation was removed from supervisory responsibility. Adrian refused to treat every employee as equally responsible. Staff members who had altered records, hidden food, or knowingly supported the scheme faced discipline based on evidence. Employees who had followed instructions without participating in fraud were interviewed separately, retrained, and placed under review. Some admitted they had been afraid. Adrian did not excuse that fear, but he did not confuse weakness with theft. Maya's 5-shift schedule was restored. Meridian Crown repaid the wages she had lost, removed the unfair warning from her personnel file, and invited her to help design a new reporting process. Adrian met with her privately after the review. "What matters is not that you helped me," he said. "You told the truth when you thought I was just another passenger." Maya lowered her eyes for a moment. Relief moved across her face, mixed with the exhaustion of someone finally being believed after months of doubt. She was not promoted into senior management overnight. Instead, she became a service integrity coordinator under an experienced director and entered a 1-year leadership program. Later, Daniel stood with Adrian outside the closed Charlotte Lounge. Temporary barriers covered the entrance, but the metal Meridian Crown letters remained visible above them. "We could rename the location," Daniel said. "Give it distance from what happened." Adrian looked at the sign. Changing the letters would be easy. He remembered how they had looked when Vanessa questioned his right to enter. Keeping the name means we have to make it true. Meridian Crown Lounge remained closed for 6 weeks. Contractors removed the partition that had divided the annex from the main room, replaced the worn carpet, widened the aisle, repaired the outlets, and turned the rear section toward the windows. Workers scanned each food case at the stockroom entrance, again at the service floor, and once more before anything left the building. At nearby training tables, employees practiced recording specific words and actions, while a second reviewer checked every complaint before it could be closed. The old presentation, mismatch, and service monitoring labels were gone. Leonard and Gloria Bennett attended a review session before reopening day. Meridian Crown did not place them beneath a company logo for photographs or ask them to praise the changes. Gloria compared the menus and asked whether a guest in the rear would receive the same food as a guest by the windows. "Same access, same quality," the new manager said. Gloria nodded. "Keep it that way." Leonard tested the wider aisle with his cane and chose a chair with firm armrests. "People should not have to explain their bodies before a room becomes usable," he said. His suggestion became part of the final layout. On reopening morning, Maya Brooks stood behind the same podium where Adrian's ticket had once been doubted. Her uniform had not changed. Her name badge had. Beneath her name in smaller letters, it read Service Integrity Coordinator. Adrian entered without warning, wearing the gray jacket, dark jeans, old leather shoes, and faded canvas backpack. No assistant followed him. No executive called ahead. Maya recognized him, but she did not summon the manager or open a private lane. She held out her hand for his phone. The scanner chimed. The screen turned green. First-class access confirmed. Welcome to Meridian Crown, Mr. Cole. Adrian glanced at the screen. That's all? Maya allowed herself a small smile. Valid ticket, that's all. Adrian stepped inside. A black maintenance supervisor sat near the windows eating from the same breakfast menu as two men in business suits. A black nurse worked beside a repaired outlet. A white couple in sweatshirts entered behind Adrian and received the same greeting, scan, and choice of seats. No one was treated with suspicion. No one was treated like royalty. The old annex no longer existed. Light reached every table. The aisle remained open from the entrance to service door 3. Adrian walked to the chair where he had first sat and lowered his backpack beside it. The door was still there. Erasing it would have been another form of pretending. What had changed was everything around it. A camera covered the corridor. Inventory records matched the shelves. Employees could report concerns outside the local chain of command. There was no hidden corner where honest people could be isolated and told their memory was wrong. In the training room, one sentence from Gloria had been printed near the staff entrance. Respect is not an upgrade benefit. It was not displayed in the public lounge as advertising. Employees saw it before every shift. Adrian stood beneath the metal Meridian Crown letters before leaving. 6 weeks earlier, he had wondered who the company believed deserved to pass beneath them. Now he thought about people who entered without titles, assistance, influence, or anyone powerful waiting to defend them. A brand did not prove its values by serving the most recognizable person in the room. It proved them when an employee believed no one important was watching. If this story stayed with you, like the video and subscribe for more. Which moment affected you most, and where are you watching from?